In this fifth and penultimate part of our trip, we travel from Mesa Verde through the Four Corners area to Bluff, Utah, then another off-road experience to visit Valley of the Gods. After quick stops at Mexican Hat and the so-called Forrest Gump Point, we headed to the Monument Valley Tribal Park. The next day we drove to Page, Arizona to visit the sights and slot canyons, the Glen Canyon. We refueled and restocked outside Mesa Verde, then drove non-stop through the Four Corners area, stopping in Bluff, Utah. Bluff was founded in the late 19th century by Mormon settlers that had traveled from the north, over the Escalante Cliffs, and through the hole in the wall. It was an unexpected and interesting lunch stop. Outside Bluff was the Sand Island petroglyph site, this one fairly new, since it had depictions of horses. Heading into the Bears Ears National Monument, sadly another political football, we turned onto the poorly indicated east entrance to Valley of the Gods. Valley of the Gods is one of the most underrated areas in southern Utah. Referred to as the Other Monument Valley, the sandstone formations there are unique and similar to those in Monument Valley. Since the Bureau of Land Management manages the land, there are no improved roads, no services, but also no cost to enter, and the added peace and serenity of very few visitors. The 17-mile dirt road passes around the monolithic rocks that have been given intriguing names, such as the Sitting Hen Butte, Rooster Butte, Seven Sailors Butte, the Battleship, the Castle, and Lady in the Bathtub. The road never was as bad as our Moon Overlook venture, but we had also learned how to maneuver the Echo, so we had no issues. Arriving to the colorful chevron formations at the junction of the main road, we stopped in Mexican Hat to see the famous balanced rock. Outside of Monument Valley, we stopped for the Instagram famous photo stop of what is now called Forrest Gump Point, from the scene in the movie. The pull-off is always full of tourists, many posing, sitting, and lying in the middle of the road for their moment of fame, but the afternoon sun was not the best for photos, and we continued. Our plan was to be settled into the View campground in the park to relax and enjoy the sunset. The hotel and campground are called the View for good reason. They are the perfect view of the sunset over the Mitten Buttes. We enjoyed some deep sky viewing, and watched the Milky Way pass over, then sat behind the hotel before we headed to bed. We awoke early to take the sunrise tour of Monument Valley. Only Navajo-led tours are allowed, and they travel back to areas not accessible to the normal drive around the valley. A dark and bumpy drive accompanied the rosy colors, slowly lighting the sky. We stopped to enjoy the silence and splendor of sunrise on Monument Valley. Afterwards, we traveled deep into the part of the valley still inhabited by the Navajo, visiting a traditional hogan, then arriving at the sacred area of the 134-foot pothole arch, called the Ear of the Wind, as it causes a wind tunnel effect that creates a distinct sound. Listen to the inspiring, spiritual silence, intertwined with Navajo music and song at the Ear of the Wind. We stopped at another pothole arch called the Eye of the God, having coincidentally captured the nebula of the same name the night before. Then headed to the most famous photo spot in the park, John Ford Point. Named for the director who used Monument Valley in many Western movies, it is a famous spot for tourists to have their photo taken either standing there or on horseback. As it was early, the tourist shops, and the guy with the horse, were not there, but I managed to take my photo of the point with a native rider. We returned to the already empty campground, stopping to get a more professional photo of Forrest Gump Point, then continuing to Page, Arizona, where we would stay at the only privately run campground of the trip for 2 nights, the base for our visit to Glen Canyon. We took the kilometer-long hike, along with busloads of French tourists, to Horseshoe Bend, a unique gooseneck meander loop in the Colorado River that almost reaches 360 degrees. In the post-9/11 world, you can no longer tour large dams like Glen Canyon, but we went to the visitor center, in the Lake Powell Overlook, to visit the dam, the second largest dam in the U.S. At over 700 feet, the dam is only running at 20 to 30% of capacity, with only 2 of its 8 turbines active, since the levels in Lake Powell are still 35% below normal. There are continuing debates on the future of the dam. The highlight of a visit to the area is a tour of one of the Antelope Canyon slot canyons. These narrow erosional features are carved by seasonal river floods, and a visit to them is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. We booked a special tour, given once a day, that coincides with the midday sun, the only time of day the sun enters into the depths of the slot canyon. Yet another photographer's dream. Our guide was great and gave photographers time to spread out and get these otherworldly, amazing photos. Several stops included photo opportunities where the guide acted as photographer, like this one called Angel Wings. You exit the rear of the canyon and walk over the hill to the many awaiting vehicles of more tourists arriving for their visit. Our visit to Page ended with our third, and last, Friday night pizza and beer.